Hey, good evening, Divya. Welcome to
Hey,
ClarITea
good
Chat.
evening. Thank you so much, Jagdish.
Hey,
Pleasure. Yeah,
so good evening, everyone who's joining us today. This is a different version of ClarITea Chat, the reverse ClarITea Chat. That means I'm going to be interviewed by Divya. And Divya, thank you so much for agreeing for that. And by the way,
my
giving
pleasure.
that idea itself. So,
Thank
just for everyone to introduce Divya, Divya Shlokam is the CEO of an award winning content marketing and personal branding firm. She's also one of the top 25 people to follow on LinkedIn by LinkedIn Lounge. She's a business and personal growth coach to some of the top names in the industry for last 12 years. Her global business show has won the award as the best business content on social media platforms. She's on an interesting journey to inspire 6 million people through Leverage LinkedIn Global Initiative. And I do follow her on LinkedIn, and I do get a lot of tips on how to create an effective presence on LinkedIn. So when we spoke and discussed about ClarITea Chat, she made a very interesting proposition that at some point, why don't I interview you for the ClarITea Chat? Now, this was a super interesting offer, and I happily took it. So here we are.
Absolutely.
Incidentally, thanks, Divya, for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Incidentally, she's an immensely peaceful and spiritual soul, and we connect very well in terms of our principles and spiritual values. Welcome, Divya, to this edition of ClarITea Chat. Before we start, here's a quick recap of the purpose of ClarITea Chat for anyone who's first time on this.
Sure.
So, so this is a discussion over a cup of tea on everything IT. I believe in the start with why. So this is the why of ClarITea Chat. That only 17% of technology investments deliver on expected ROI. Yeah, we may have 100% of the technology programs going into sign-offs and acceptance, but in terms of from a purely business value point of view, that's what research shows. Now, as I, as a practitioner, try to go into the roots of it, I found that there are few reasons why success is elusive in technology ROI. So the first dimension is the complexity. Um, every function has an industry focus to it. A finance for a particular industry, HR for a particular industry, but for IT, it has to engage in every single process. It cannot restrict itself only to one process because it makes a difference to whether finance process, manufacturing, HR. In every process, there is technology involved. And on top of it, whenever you implement technology, there's a people impact. So that makes it twice more complex. And on top of it, it's an asset management function. All other functions are at least a couple of 100 years old, starting from the time of Industrial Revolution. IT as a management function came out of the closet only about 30 years back. And what we call as a digital technology is just about 10 years old. Now, the next thing that aids into the complexity is the high incremental margins in technology, which leads to intense sales and marketing. Especially if you see products, the incremental cost of sales is almost nil, and therefore, you can call it as an infinite incremental margin business, incremental revenue divided by incremental sales. So that leads to intense sales and marketing, which, when you combine it with the asymmetry of talent, is uh, a tricky combination. More than 95% of the talent is on the supply side. That means either with system integrators or with the technology product companies. That leaves very little talent in the IT functions, people who have to manage IT. And that's another factor which makes success with IT elusive and difficult. So that's summarizing it. IT, managing IT has multidimensional complexity. It's an ascent function. There's intense sales and marketing bombardment at you, and 95% plus of the talent is on the supply side, and that somewhere comes all together to have a very low ROI success rate for technology investments. So that's where ClarITea Chat comes in, learning from leaders. So managing IT is an art. If you look at all these factors, the science of all of this is not fully disseminated. And the art is learned from the accomplished artists, CIOs, and thought leaders through discussions on leadership principles to achieve positive ROI. So these are, in terms of the format, these are informal chats on real questions in IT management and answered by CIOs and leaders over a cup of tea. So that's the purpose. Let's get back to Divya now,
Yeah.
who's interviewing me today.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Divya. So
Thank
over
you
to you.
so much. Thank you so much, Jagdish. In fact, since I'm doing the reverse ClarITea Chat with you here today and I'm your host, so let's have some fun. Though I know about you, we have been friends, but I would love to know a little bit about you before we jump on to learning from your growth stories. So, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone around here, and then we'll quickly move to your growth stories. Yeah, back to you.
That's interesting. I have to introduce myself on my own show,
Yeah, yeah.
but you are the host. So, Divya, I call myself an accidental CIO. I started out as a mechanical engineer,
Okay.
7 years hardcore mechanical engineering. I was out in the field
Mm-hmm.
repairing excavators in Andhra Pradesh,
Mm-hmm.
installing some 75-ton cranes alone with the help of my customer staff.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I somewhere came into IT. So I joined the service headquarters of commercial vehicles. That
Mm-hmm.
was in 2000.
Okay.
And for 2 years, I just did process transformation related work. So I
Mm-hmm.
was improving the profitability of dealerships and
Mm-hmm.
taking Kaizen from factory floors to
Mm-hmm.
dealership, which
Mm-hmm.
is when I was enrolled into starting a CRM program for Tata Motors.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw something which was really revolutionary and transformational. Nobody had done it before, which was to
Okay.
set up a central, some sort of a
Mm-hmm.
cloud system for Tata Motors dealers. That
Okay.
became a big hit, and 7 years
Mm-hmm.
later got me the role of the CIO for Tata Motors. And then I again started working on transformation of Tata Motors IT.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Took it from about a 7-member IT team to about 100 plus people. Built a very business focused IT strategy, and then created a digital transformation roadmap for Tata Motors, which
Okay.
is when General Electric knocked on my doors in
Mm-hmm.
2017. I joined them
Okay.
as the international CIO for G Transportation,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 years later, I decided to come out on my own and start my own consulting. So that's me.
Interesting. Yeah.
I live in
Mm.
Mumbai with my
Yeah.
2 kids, with my wife and 2 kids, and I play golf.
Okay. Interesting and inspiring, Jagdish. So, once again, welcome to this experience sharing, decoding the art of finding ROI with technologies. I was actually looking at your career growth chart that you had shared with me, Jagdish, sometime back, and figured out that you have grown quite fast, taking up the Tata Motors CIO role at the age of 37. That's truly inspiring. So, why don't you share with us about three or four growth stories so that we can actually call out the reflection points and which could be revealed to everyone here, and it could actually bring out your first principles of transformation. Back to you.
Uh, I think the first one that I recall was my first stint in Hyderabad. I had great mentors,
Mm-hmm.
and my boss, who was the service manager, he asked me to collect data, operational data from the registers of cement plants,
Okay.
about a product called Wheelloader. Okay,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and all I was doing was like taking my diary and jotting down a lot of data from multiple cement plants, and then I came back, and this was about our product as well as the competitor product. And I came back and put it all in Excel and started doing some crunching. And what I figured out that
Mm-hmm.
the data revealed that the maintenance cost of our product was way less than the competitor. And
Oh,
we converted that into some sort of a 10-15 pager grounds up report, sent it to headquarters. That report got circulated to the entire business, and people started showing it to customers and started winning orders. Okay,
okay.
now
Mm-hmm.
that was like a very solid belief in data. Okay, and which
Mm-hmm.
was my boss showed me that you have to trust data. That's it.
True. True. Very true.
And that got us the market success.
Okay.
The
Mm-hmm.
other, in the same function, I was visiting a cluster of granite mines,
Mm-hmm.
and I happened to meet a service engineer of Ingersoll Rand, who provide air compressors
Mm-hmm.
to all these mines,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a list of all the 50 odd mines in that area.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
I actually jotted down. That time there were no mobile phones or computers, so I jotted it all down on my pad,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then came back. I also
Mm-hmm.
got some qualitative data, which mines are doing well, which ones are expanding, which ones are, sort of dying, and all of that. And I came back and gave it to my folks.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward 15 days later, me and one of our sales guys, we
Mm-hmm.
visited that place and we visited each of those customers. Okay.
Okay.
And when we came back, we had about 1 crore worth of orders in our hand.
Okay.
Okay.
Inspiring. Okay.
So these two incidents from my early career gave
Mm-hmm.
me that belief or that trust in data, that
Data. Yeah.
yeah, that
Absolutely.
if
Yeah.
you leave your emotions aside and trust in
Mm-hmm.
data, and that is something that I have found so worthwhile as
Mm-hmm.
I have been democratizing data as a IT
Mm-hmm.
leader or CIO,
Mm-hmm.
and as I have been using fact-based management,
Mm.
keep emotions outside the door.
Yeah.
That has led to my effectiveness.
Yeah.
Now,
So just to quickly recap, Jagdish, you said that you learned through this story that, leave your emotions aside and learn to trust data for fact-based management. So this found the, foundation of your first principles. Now let's move on to your next growth moments or growth story. Yeah.
yeah. So the next one was now this was belief in data. The next one was belief in myself. So
Ah.
when we
Hmm.
started the CRM program,
Hmm.
we had a very renowned and top system
Hmm.
integrators who was doing it for us.
Hmm.
And one of the things we had done was, and of course on a good advice of a friend,
Hmm.
is that we got trained thoroughly in the technology that we are about to implement.
Hmm.
And afterwards, we started referring to a whole host of knowledge base and all that. And we
Hmm.
figured out that, what the system integrator is doing with the so-called expertise is not all right. I
Okay.
mean, things can be done differently. And, we used to then sort of have logical but pitched battles with our
Hmm.
system integrator in terms of why something should be done in a certain way.
Okay.
Okay. And actually we got our way and we said, okay, we'll experiment with it. And
Hmm.
you know what? I mean, I think what we were able to build was because of this conviction in ourselves that even
Hmm.
though I have not done technology before, if
Hmm.
my process is right, if my approach is right,
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
I then we just need to follow. Then we just need to follow that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
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 this
that
is
was
what
like
I draw from your second story, and we'll continue your second story. So have conviction in yourself and trust your process and approach. So this, I can figure out this is building your now growth story towards becoming CIO. Inspiring. Yeah, please carry on. Yeah.
yeah. And I think then the third one was like to kind of break free, which is to think big
Mm-hmm.
and think outside in. And
Mm-hmm.
that was like my when I took over as Tata
Mm-hmm.
Motors CIO, I had two choices. One is to like continue incrementally in terms of, because I had seen Tata Motors for way long, I could continue incrementally, keep the lights on. But
Mm-hmm.
because I came from business, I looked at the potential that we had as an organization and what IT could do.
Mm-hmm.
But there was always this reservation that we've never done this before. So like would I look like a fool if I do this? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did two things. One is I benchmarked with
Mm-hmm.
outsiders. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I started leveraging experts,
Mm-hmm.
specifically from Gartner,
Okay.
and I started building out a to be picture, keeping myself out. So if I feel like a fool, I just need to take
Mm-hmm.
myself out of the content. I said, for Tata Motors,
Mm-hmm.
what is the kind of IT it deserves? What's the kind of
Mm-hmm.
technology it should be having? What kind
Mm-hmm.
of problems we should be solving with technology? And then look
Mm-hmm.
outside and bring, some of these approaches and processes into it, and then
Mm-hmm.
have, some sort of a dispassionate discussion with my bosses and with my
Mm-hmm.
business stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that was very uncomfortable because, I was breaking from the tradition. I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking bigger than what I thought I could handle,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it was worth it.
Yeah. So this is what I truly learned from you, that even if you have to take yourself out of the context, take yourself out of the context, focus on company's growth. And then even if you have to indulge into dispassionate discussions with your stakeholders, be it bosses, juniors, etc., so do get into that. Anything else beyond this that helped you reach to that level of CIO and develop that mindset that you have today? So, any other incidents you recall?
Yeah. The other thing is like, focus on processes.
Wow. Okay.
So and build it for the future. So when I looked at any process, whether it was like management process or whether it was a business process,
Mm-hmm.
I was always looking at it that how will it stand the test of time? Will it scale up to where the business will scale up after 5 years, or where its
Sure.
potential to create impact after 5 years? So
Yeah.
those were the things I was looking at, and
Yeah.
uh, and I think that helped me a lot in terms of building sustainable solutions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, building sustainable solutions, that scalability, and building the processes for future became your day-to-day practice and your thought process. Uh,
Yeah,
do you think all these things that you have mentioned, whether believing in the process, believing in yourself, believing on data, focusing on the processes, getting indulged into dispassionate processes, or are these all things essential? Or you think we can miss out few things and still we can grow up the ladder in the career? Uh, I just need to learn from you. How does a person start thinking when someone evolves to be that senior or top leader in the industry? Back to you.
yeah. So I've only told you what I've done. I've not told you what I did not do or what I did not have.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the uh, when I look back, I felt that I always created a great team. Okay.
Okay.
So
Inspiring.
I
Okay.
I always collaborated. So I always had a reality check on myself that,
Mm-hmm.
as I said, and as I showed you in that presentation, that
Mm-hmm.
managing IT is very, very complex. I mean, you require, you know, um, expertise into all kinds of business processes. You require, you need to know the technologies and, all kinds of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I was always doing, reflecting, was, what am I good at? Okay.
True.
And then what am I not good at is also as important, right? So for whatever
Absolutely.
I'm not good at, I was
Mm-hmm.
always looking out where can I collaborate or where can I bring in a team member for that. Okay.
Okay.
So I built a
Inspiring.
great team, and
Mm-hmm.
the team I built always had complementary capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
Like for example, I am a mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
I did not, study technology or did not get, uh, you know, groomed into technology role. So I was always surrounding myself with great techies. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, I hired a CTO from from Oracle. Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so so that's something that I could not do, but I collaborated on. Similarly,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of expertise that I was looking around, sometimes you won't find it here. So I was really collaborating with experts outside, and getting that kind of subject matter knowledge.
Hmm. Inspiring, Jagdish. So now let's talk about your phases of growth, because growing from business manager to IT manager and then to an IT leader, what remained common and what became different? I would love to learn some principles and methods that you adopted. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Divya, because I think what has not changed over a period of years is the customer centricity. So I
Okay.
remember, even when I was a CIO and we were trying to do a mobile solution for our salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, everybody else in the room was like, we got to build this, and we got to control the indiscipline
Mm-hmm.
among salespeople. And I was probably the only one who said that we need to look at salesperson as a customer and try to improve his quality of life, and try to
Okay.
first understand where they're coming from. And
Mm-hmm.
so I actually sent two of my business analysts on the back of
Mm-hmm.
these two salespeople we picked up from different dealerships, and my mandate to them was just ride pillion to them for an entire day, okay,
Okay.
and take rigorous notes of what they are doing, what their pains are, and what are their frustrations, what kind of pressures they come under, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And a week later, when we reviewed that entire day in customer's life kind of exercise, the results were revealing.
Mm-hmm.
What we wanted to build was very different from what they wanted. Okay.
True.
What we thought their pressures are were very
Mhm.
different from what their pressures actually were. Okay.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So that's something that hasn't changed. The other
Okay.
thing which hasn't changed is the process focus.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Again, if you combine it with customer centricity, I
Mm-hmm.
can give you an example.
Yeah.
Uh, we were looking at uh, the potential of IoT in manufacturing. Okay,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and we were coming across a lot of knowledge in terms of IoT can do this, IoT can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I told my team is that I want to go around the plant myself. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever opportunities we can think of in terms of IoT, I want to physically check out and talk to the people whether is that really a pain where you would look for a solution like IoT. So we
Mm-hmm.
toured around the plant, and
Mm-hmm.
I went to the sewage treatment plant. I went to the water supply plant. I went to the diesel
Mm-hmm.
supply plant. There was a 200,000 liter tank where
Mm-hmm.
somebody was taking a level, I think, once or twice a day using a dipstick.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was going
Okay.
like all the way, 2 or 3 floors, okay, up, and then using
Mm-hmm.
a huge dipstick and checking that, okay, this is my diesel level. I'm like, oh my God, this is something that can be so easily addressed by IoT, right? And
Yeah.
then we went to the power supply plant, which is some 30 megawatt power supply plant for the entire
Mm-hmm.
plant, and try
Mm-hmm.
to understand how the entire power distribution process is, what kind of surprises people come across, what kind of solutions we could look at from an IoT point of view. And surprise,
Mm-hmm.
surprise, I found that, I found the entire process of how we were running a complete windmill estate,
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe a couple of 100 kilometers away, and
Mm-hmm.
how we had to kind of reconcile all that power that we were supplying to the grid in terms of
Mm-hmm.
drawing power from the grid and what. So you understand that business process only by walking around. Now that has not changed. Even today,
Wow.
I want to
Mm-hmm.
solve a problem. I would first want to talk to the people on the ground, and
Mm-hmm.
understand the problem first. So
Hmm.
before you solve, you understand.
Yeah. So
And
in Japanese principles, they say, walk to Gemba first, go to Gemba,
correct,
go to the workplace first. Absolutely. Yeah. So you were continuing. Please continue. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one is the outside in approach. It is like, being humble, having
Mm-hmm.
a certain amount of humility to say that I'm not everything. I'm not the best.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, despite having a lot of success behind me and behind my team,
Mm-hmm.
when it came to developing, these mobile apps or creating a complete, let's say, user experience centric strategy. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I I still invited a startup to actually come and teach us design thinking.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
so
Mm-hmm.
this guy came and about 30 of us sat in the conference room, learned design thinking. In fact, he made us actually all of us go into the streets below,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
okay, and just talk to strangers, trying to gather their perspective for designing something.
Mm.
So this is
Inspiring.
something,
Yeah.
I mean, however much you have learned, right?
True.
There will always be much more to learn, and you must keep that openness. I'm I'm,
Yeah.
I'm always open to learn.
Yeah, and I especially loved that incident which you narrated. Like you had hired that startup to actually train you on design thinking, and then help you with that. So let's read some of the comments before we proceed ahead, and let's get to understand what everyone is saying about Jagdish today. So Ganesh Rao says Jagdish was jack of all and master of many. Wonderful knowing him. Inspiring. Thank you so much, Ganesh, and would love to know more about him through your comments. So one of the LinkedIn users whose name is not clear says, "Dear Jagdish and Divya, good to see you. Nice to see Jagdish on the other side of the table." Absolutely, thank you so much, Jagdish, for accepting my offer. That why don't you come on the other side of the table and let me interview you on your show? Then another LinkedIn user, please share your name. Sometimes these third-party apps don't reflect the names. Says, great. Though of treating your sales folks as your internal customer. Yeah, this is a great thought. In fact, even I loved it. Why don't you treat your sales professionals as your customers, because they know a lot more about the customers. So this gives you immediate insight into what the end customer is thinking or going through. Absolutely amazing, and I so resonate with you. Then Ganesh Rao says, I'm sure you would have been a mentor to many. Uh, Jagdish, anything you want to say about Ganesh Rao's observation and comment?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one of my satisfactions that I derive is that I see my mentees in high places in CXOs levels, and some of them, like, I've mentored them when they were individual contributors. So it's great to it's a great feeling to be a mentor, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've personally seen Jagdish mentoring many people in the industry. So he's an amazing mentor and super amazing coach. All right, so let's proceed ahead. Sachin Sharma says, being open to experiment was one aspect shown by you to the entire team. Appreciable, Sachin. And then Rakesh Khitan says, always trusted his team. So Rakesh seems to be your ex-colleague and knowing you,
Yes,
Jagdish.
yes.
Yeah.
So was Sachin.
All right. Inspiring. And then Parna Ghosh says, good to see you on the other side of the clarity. Good explanation of yourself, explaining self in the most difficult thing to do through reflections of life. Absolutely. And that's what I praise Jagdish for. His writing, his written content, and his verbal expressions are amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, Jagdish, let's proceed ahead and let's see. All right. Another LinkedIn user says, absolutely great input as belief on data and think out of your comfort from yourself and think about organization. Amazing. Even I'm learning a lot from Jagdish these days. So then Vaibhav says, very good points. Mainly customer centric, ground level. driving and leading from the front and be with the technology. And one of the LinkedIn users whose name was not clear is Vijay Sethi. Thank you so much, Vijay Sethi ji. I am looking forward to host you the next week on Value Addition Global Show. Let's proceed ahead. And then Subramanian says, dear Jagdish, in today's context, when we look at customer-centric approach and agile processes, critical in making things simple and adaptive. What's your observation on this, Jagdish?
No, absolutely. In the waterfall process, if I'm like looking at it uh, from definitions point of view, you only got a customer feedback when you took something to him like 3 or 4 months later or 6 months later. In an
Mm-hmm.
agile process, every fortnight you are sitting in front of the user of your customer, showing him something, and then the process itself allows the user or the customer to make changes to whatever you've done. So
Mm-hmm.
it's absolutely customer centric, and that's why anybody who wants to do a digital transformation or digital product development must
Mm-hmm.
adopt agile process.
Yeah, yeah. So now let's proceed ahead, Jagdish. Let's talk about the transforming yourself into an entrepreneur. I wonder you had left corporate career at your prime and became a solopreneur. So what made this transformation smooth? Didn't you feel those anxieties that we usually, come across? Oh my God, venturing into solopreneurship. What's been your experience?
Yeah. So Divya, I think this is not a story that I've told, very many times to many people. So let me tell this now. So as I
Okay.
was, looking at coming out of GE, and I was exploring some offers, but my only discomfort was that I had done quite a lot in terms of transformation and technology, and some of it was actually going back to do the same things again. And
Okay.
I
Mm-hmm.
was not very sure whether I will be able to do a good, passionate job about doing the same transformations once again for somebody again, starting at a very primitive state, like which I started from in Tata Motors. Uh, I mean, primitive state from an IT management process point of view,
Mm-hmm.
uh, not really the technology. So, hand on my heart, I said, listen, I'll probably be more excited if I'm able to, find newer challenges, let's say every month. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
helping people, mentor people, etc., etc. Now, one of the things, which I was always, it happens in corporate roles that you are sort of silenced by your chair, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't speak your mind, and I'm like one who is never afraid to speak my mind. And I said,
True.
listen, I'm no longer at about 47, 48 years. I want to do what I want to. I want to say what I want to, whether
Mm-hmm.
somebody likes it or not. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of these things were going on in my mind when I said, okay, let me experiment with entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I did talk to people who had become entrepreneurs. Almost everybody, digested me, saying that
Mm-hmm.
it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I didn't listen to them, but I managed my expectations based on my talks with them. Like for example, your network doesn't help you as much as you think, which I didn't expect anything from my network. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, even though my network has been very generous with me in
Yeah.
terms of helping, and my first business came from somebody who had been a good friend and who reached out and all that. Um, but I think it was so. One of the things that I prepared myself for is one is to
Mm-hmm.
forget the high chair. You know, a high chair and a lot of staff around and a lot of people at your beck and call. I said, okay, I'm going to mentally come out of that. So a lot of it is actually in your mindsets. So I
True.
decided, that okay, there are a lot of things that come with that high chair which are not going to be around, and I
Mm-hmm.
got to be comfortable with that. Now,
Mm.
my definition of how I look at myself as a person and as a professional is, I always have been doing that is to keep my retirement day in my mind. If the moment you
Mm-hmm.
retire, okay,
Mm-hmm.
if people stop coming to you, if people stop
True.
approaching you, that means it was your
Mm.
chair, not you, right?
Okay.
And I and
Interesting.
I have I have tried to make sure. In fact, I have written a blog about empathy in which I mentioned this, that
Mm-hmm.
I have been following that principle. So one thing I was sure that,
Mm-hmm.
listen, you know what, even if I come out of a corporate role, I'm still I
Available.
mean, the way I have lived it, let me find a validation for that approach.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of unlearning, but a lot of making up my own mindset.
Mm-hmm.
uh, I have been a learner always. You know, when I
Mm-hmm.
came to IT or when I became a CIO, I learned it. So one thing I was confident is that I'll learn it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I also took external help. I found coaches. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One is to, like, try to learn
Mm-hmm.
swimming all by yourself in
Yeah.
unknown waters. The other
Mm.
is to to learn from people who have done it. Of course, it costs a
True.
lot of money,
Yeah.
but if you're serious about it, I said,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm serious about it, then I need to literally put my money on the table. Okay.
True.
And actually, actually sort of enrolled with top coaches for doing that. And then,
Mm-hmm.
part of that whole learning was also learning LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because eventually, when you're a solopreneur, LinkedIn is your your mouthpiece.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and as I said, I would repeat it again. Be mentally ready to. But I think one part of that mental readiness is faith.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hand on my heart, I knew that I had led an honest, value driven life. I had tried to be good to as many people. I tried to mentor as many people. And therefore,
Mm-hmm.
I had a certain amount of faith that, you know what, it's going to pan out.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And especially Jagdish, I would love to add here, when for the that top corporate cream layer, when they want to venture as solopreneur. Incidentally, I had one episode in the morning itself of Value Addition Global Show. So me and the guest were talking about this. So you are already financially abundant. All you need is to take that courage and to try newer dimensions of life, and trying this entrepreneur venture could be another dimension that you have never tried in life. So that's amazing. You said that I also wanted to take risk, you wanted to try, you also hired coaches so that you don't swim in the unknown waters, you take their hand holding support. Now we have a very important question from Srikanth. He writes, dear Jagdish, when you start your entrepreneurial journey, did you begin with the end in mind, that is the exit strategy?
So, Shrikant, I think what you mean is the exit strategy from entrepreneurship. No, not really. Because, so I had lots of fears and concerns about going solo, okay, or going on my
Mhm,
own.
mhm,
But then I had so much of, like, if you look at the other side of the coin, in terms of the positives of going solo, there were like just too many of them. So I have not really looked at an exit strategy. I would say an exit strategy will only happen in case, like, something turns completely, topsy turvy, and, complete unknowns come in my way. But I'm happy being an entrepreneur, and the amount of the satisfaction that I get in helping others transform themselves. Okay,
mhm.
using primarily a mentoring approach, not really a very hands-on, I will do it for you kind of approach, but a mentoring and mindset shaping approach. I
True.
really love to see that transformation happen, especially with my clients.
Mhm.
Uh, I would say it is much much more satisfying than than the corporate drudgery.
Yeah.
So I don't
And
like it.
Yeah, and Jagdish, I personally for sure know that you've been handling international clients and the global organizations. Let's keep this for some other episode. We will dive into, how to manage those international clients and, how to start doing consultancy with them. Meanwhile, one of the LinkedIn users whose name is not clear here asks, "Hi Jagdish, what about startup getting business very challenging?"
Sorry.
So one of the LinkedIn users writes, "Hi Jagdish, what about startup getting business very challenging?" Would you love to answer this, or you need more clarity on it?
I think what the question probably is that the startups find getting business very challenging. Um, yes, it is. I think you're and a startup. In my view, I also mentor startups. So in my view, there's a lot of I would say misnomers, you may call them, around why and how to do a startup. Okay. Sometimes it's all about funding, which is not a great thing uh,
Mm-hmm.
as a starting point. I think a starting
Mm-hmm.
point is to do a unique solution, find a unique solution, solve a tangible problem, and
Mm-hmm.
do it you know in a sustainable manner.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so if you are doing that, then I think success comes a little easier, and
True.
finding business becomes much easier, because you're really putting yourself in customer shoes and trying to solve a problem. And if
Mm-hmm.
somebody solves my problem, what's my problem in letting him experiment with me? Because most startup engagements start with an experimentation, and only
Mm-hmm.
once you have a path to value, then you sign something significant.
True.
So
True.
that's my personal view. By the way, Divya, Srikanth clarified. He said by
Yeah.
exit strategy, he
Yeah.
meant not
Yeah.
from entrepreneurship, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but from a particular company started up. Yes, I
True.
had an exit strategy. So I didn't want to play a role that I was playing, and I talked to my bosses about giving me another role. I had gone to GE for finding global roles, and
Mm-hmm.
that somehow didn't happen, because GE went in a different way than I anticipated. It went downhill, and then it sold the business that I had joined, and that business I was struggling to find a global role for myself, even though the business and the leadership was good, promising. And then hand on my heart, I said, what do I just want to do this? My heart is not in it. Do I just want to do it like for a good fat paycheck? And my answer was, I'm somewhere, I'm a little crazy that I don't do what I don't want to do. Okay.
True.
And so I did have a exit strategy. About 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the moment I decided I want to exit, I started out with a coach, and I started getting that clarity on what should I be doing after 6 months, and then the whole process rolled out. And my coach
Yeah.
really encouraged me. When he looked at, the initial part of a coaching, conversation is to lay yourself out bare in front of your coach in terms of what you are. And
Mm-hmm.
we always assess ourselves negatively, but it's a coach who is looking at all the diamonds in that big pile.
True.
And when he recounted all the diamonds to me, and I was like, why don't you become an entrepreneur? So why are you
Yeah.
looking for another job?
Yeah.
And that gave me a lot of confidence, I must say.
Yeah, yeah. In fact,
I
I
think that's
personally also feel that taking support of coaches is always helpful. I've also had coaches in my life, so uh, if you're someone who truly wants to achieve your dreams and desperately want to do something in life that you had been so wanting to do, I think it makes a good sense to hire a deserving coach and then have conversations with them. Now let's proceed, Jagdish. Finally, let's now switch to the advice for leaders, because on your show I find that there are a large number of leaders who are coming as audience and who are engaging with you. How to transform? So, what is your advice to leaders out there who want to transform? I would love to see you tapping into some incidents once again to share your anecdotes. Back to you.
Okay. Okay. I think my first one I would say is tap into your core. What are you best at? Okay.
Mhm.
Because in today's world is with that kind of collaboration, you can always plug in the rest, but you need to decide what you're best at. So I
Mhm.
will I'll recount a story with one of the guys.
Mhm.
And he was like, looking for a change. He had done lots and lots of process, related work in different organizations and all of that. And he somehow felt that, all of this is like, the world is far more technical and, these kind of things. He hasn't really benefited from it.
Mhm.
And uh, when I looked at his entire thing, I just out of the blue suggested to him, I said, why don't you are very good in processes, okay? And we have a function in our organization called the shared services, okay?
Mhm.
Which is very process driven. In fact, you can't
Mhm.
drive a shared service function without process expertise, okay?
True.
I had never even thought of going into shared services. And I
True.
said, think about it, okay, read
Mhm.
about it, we talk to people and see
Mhm.
whether what you find like absolutely, I mean, no value in what you've done. Does
Mhm.
that really help here? And he's decided to experiment and took a bet on it. I said, listen, if it doesn't work out, I'll give you a better role. Okay, I'll give you a role that you want, but trust me and try it. And he tried it, and I think the customer ate out of his hands. He loved it, the whole process orientation, and the necessity of finding the processes and all that. So he was good at that. The rest of it, everybody else complimented. So
Mhm.
find what you're good at, collaborate for the rest.
Mhm.
Then second thing is like always find a mentor. I can tell you one of my mentors, and I can mention him here, was
Mhm.
a guy by the name Mark McDonald from Gartner, a very
Mhm.
tall and hefty guy, and
Mhm.
a very effective speaker. And I mean, this guy would transform mindsets.
Mhm.
And I just went to him and I said, "Hey, Mark, can I have discussions with you whenever we come across each other?" And he was very cool, and so we started. So whenever he was in India, American, whenever he used to come to
Mhm.
India for any of the Gartner seminars and all, I
Mhm.
would like I would just invite myself for a breakfast meeting at his hotel.
Okay. Okay.
And I would go prepared, and I would have all kinds of questions. And, hey, you know what? How do others
Mhm.
people do this? How do others people do this? And all of that. And I have a legendary story with him about transforming my boss. Okay,
Mhm.
that's for another day. By the way, I've already shot
Yeah.
a video on that.
Yeah.
But I took his help to reshape my boss's mindset.
Mhm.
So, the mentors is not that the organization has to give you a mentor. Sometimes you have to find your own mentors. But,
Mhm.
people who have done it before, who have met those challenges, who have overcome those challenges, they always can give you a shortcut, or at least a shortcut advice you know, to guide you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
third thing I would say is it's very counterintuitive advice, but being empathetic is
Mhm.
an absolute must for transformation. Absolute
Mhm.
must for transformation.
Mhm.
So, here
Mhm.
is the story which somebody narrated. Guru narrated very nicely to us in terms of how transformation happens. Okay, so
Mhm.
this is a story that you see a crowd running mindlessly
Mhm.
towards a cliff. Now you know the map of the area, you're an expert in that area, and you see that these people are running towards the cliff, and by the time they stop, at least like 30 people would have gone down, right?
Mhm.
So how would you save them?
Okay. Mhm.
So if you shout at them, hey, don't go there, they're anyway running mindlessly.
Yeah.
They're not going to be saved by you shouting or by you lecturing, right?
Mhm.
So my guru's advice was that, you go and become part of them. Okay? Start running with them. Be one of them. Okay. Then get ahead of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And as you get ahead of them, start changing their direction towards safety.
Inspiring.
This
Logical.
is this is a very, very deep story which I always remember, that
Yeah.
you can never be an outsider and do a transformation. You have
Mm-hmm.
to be an insider. Like for example, in that IoT story,
Mm-hmm.
if tomorrow, if I am going to, let's say, put an IoT solution in the diesel supply,
Mm-hmm.
network within the plant, and I
Mm-hmm.
haven't been there, I haven't talked to those people, there
Mm-hmm.
won't be a trust. It will come like more as like, a consulting suggestion, or, an external
Mm-hmm.
intervention. It will never be like of our own.
Mm-hmm.
So empathy is so must, and it comes in different approaches. Also, for example, if you see all the user experience stuff that we talk about in digital transformation, that's nothing
Mm-hmm.
but developing empathy in a very, very systematic manner. But as a
Mm-hmm.
leader,
Mm-hmm.
keep your ego aside,
Mm-hmm.
have an empathy, respect others' point of view,
Mm-hmm.
respect others' resistances. Very
Mm-hmm.
important. So
Mm-hmm.
I can recall another story that I thought of. So I was
Mm-hmm.
talking to a CIO
Mm-hmm.
of a real estate company recently,
Mm-hmm.
and this guy was, Jagdish, I have got so many plans, and I have done all the outside in thinking. I have found who's doing what and all that, and I have created some big plans.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I mean, I don't know why my leaders are cold to it.
Mm-hmm.
We had something like a 45-minute chat, and in that chat, I somehow kind of managed to get into the minds of his leaders. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? You're creating such a grand plan that the cost of failure is very high.
True.
Okay. So why don't you reshape it in a way that all your plans, just break them down into small experiments,
Mm-hmm.
and tell your leaders the cost of failure is nothing.
Yeah.
Don't create grand plans.
Mm-hmm.
And it really struck him. I said, Jagdish, I think I found my answers. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you look at
Mm-hmm.
it from a leader's point, if you look at digital transformation from a leader's point of view, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are always worried. What if it does not work, right?
True. True.
Will I will I look like a fool? Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
you just remove it from the equation by saying that no, we're just doing a small experiment. We're not doing all the digital transformation stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, simple things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let me reiterate what we have learned so far from your anecdotes and your experiences. So you have said that initially tap into your core. So, what you are best at, just figure out, then collaborate for the rest. Once you have tapped into your core and figured out, then collaborate, find a suitable mentor. It could also be a coach, but you have highlighted as a mentor. And then being empathetic, then you also reflected that empathy comes in different forms. It could be an insider, lead, and change the direction the way you shared about your guru story, what he told you about that mob that was running in an unfavored direction. Then you also said that reflect empathy in user experience, keep the ego aside, respect others resistances as well as point of view. And finally you also shared that do little experiments, be experimenting in your approach. So one of the LinkedIn users meanwhile says, dear Jagdish, one of the reasons I feel that stops people from starting on their own is fear of failure, as they are entering in an unknown territory. What will be your advice to those who are on the edge for quite some time and still wondering on whether to take the plunge or not? Vijay Sethi. Yeah,
Yeah. I think this fear of failure is the Hanuman curse that we all carry. Okay.
yeah.
So Hanuman carried a curse that he's not good enough, and he would never realize his own capabilities. Okay. So so I think we are all blessed with that curse, that we don't know enough of ourselves. This question coming from Vijay Sethi now. I mean, even somebody like Vijay having a fear of failure, and I must say that even I had a fear of failure.
Yeah, we are all
So,
humans.
so
Yeah,
anybody else would kind of laugh at it. You know what, Vijay and Jagdish having fear of failure, but
yeah,
that's a curse we all carry. I call it the Hanuman curse. Okay,
yeah,
but then I think every Hanuman needs a Jamwant.
yeah.
Okay? So you know what happened? When they had to cross the sea into Lanka, and somebody had to give a message to Sitaji. Then people knew that it's only Hanuman who could do it, but Hanuman didn't believe that he could do it. Okay? So he needed a Jamwant to, encourage him and tell him about the powers that he carries, and that he's the only one who can do it and all that. And then
Mhm.
Hanuman got that confidence and he took that plunge. So
Yeah,
in this entire anecdote, I think the Jamwant is the coach, okay,
yeah,
and Hanuman is the person who's cursed with that fear of failure.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
Vijay sir, my advice is like I think the fear of failure can be really addressed by seeing a mirror. We typically see a darker mirror than what it really is, and therefore a coach always provides a coach or mentor, formal or informal, will always provide you with a more clearer and colorless mirror, and will help you see your own capabilities um, and strengths in a much I would say saner way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I also personally, Jagdish, feel that they say to err is human. I personally feel to fear is human. So
Absolutely.
all of us have got our own phobias, fears, anxieties, apprehensions. So everything you name anything related to emotions, we all face this. We are all in the same boat. So definitely. Now let's proceed ahead. We come to the conclusion of this episode. Jagdish, you must have thought of something for me because I've been interviewing you, and now it might be your turn to ask me a question or two. The choice is yours. Back to you.
Yeah. So Divya, we talk together on LinkedIn Live, and you don't share anything from your side. That's criminal. Okay. So I had a question for you.
Sure.
I've been following you, and you've been generous with your advice, and I've seen your videos and live sessions, and there's some real good advice. Now, share a brief about what your LinkedIn mission is, and
Hmm.
I'm especially since I'm sort of representing the technology community. I have
Yeah.
found that people are not very systematic, or to an extent they are shy of
Hmm.
being on social media.
Hmm.
And what's your message to us media shy fox, social media
Yeah.
shy fox?
All right. Thank you so much, Jagdish. So I started this journey long time back. I've been coaching top industry leaders. However, this also triggered me when I actually went to Canada in the year 2015. And, once I went on to pick up my daughters in the school, and very minuscule goodness my younger daughter had done. And I overheard a teacher saying, Urvi, you have done fabulous job. You go out to the world, tell it to everyone that you are an amazing person and you have taken this initiative. And I was like, okay, is there any need to actually go out and showcase it to the world that she's done that minuscule thing? So then I spoke to her, and she said, this is the difference between the Western upbringing versus the Indian upbringing. The people in India are actually very work facing people, they are very hard working. But in the Western countries, we also make kids upbring them in such a way that they also become world facing leaders. So if you observe our Indian leaders, whether business leaders or corporate world leaders, you'll be able to notice that less number of leaders or business owners or billionaires are popular on social media. When you talk of Jeff Bezos, when you talk of Elon Musk, when you talk of such billionaires outside India, you will find that they are very active on social media because they know that they also have to face work. They equally have to be world facing. So they are very well aware about their personal branding. They are very well aware about the power of their thought leadership impacting their enterprises or their own businesses. So I personally feel that this shyness is inbuilt. This is in our DNA. We can overcome it if the leaders learn social media as a skill. as a competency, as an ability, to influence other people, to create impact in the society, they will be able to take it normally. They'll be able to get rid of their shyness. Now, what am I doing on LinkedIn? Your second question is, during 2020, the first lockdowns happened, and I have a lot of friends like you, so they started approaching me. Some of them unfortunately had lost their authority and their position at very senior level. Companies were getting rid of the top leaders also. So they said, Divya, do something about it. You have been super successful using the power of LinkedIn. You've got maximum clients using the power of LinkedIn. Do also let us know, how do we go about it? On the other hand, there were some students who reached out to me, and they said that we are afraid of our future. It seems to be gloomy. So then I decided, all right, unfortunately, so far, not many leaders have been able to take advantage of LinkedIn. So I figured out that at least I can impact 1% of LinkedIn's population. The number prevalent at that time was 675 million people, LinkedIn users. So I decided, all right, even if I impact 6 million people through awareness about how to use LinkedIn, I can do it. So then I started giving free workshops, free master classes, and that's how more and more people started connecting with us as volunteers. And now we have a large community of volunteers who are spreading this awareness as to how to use the power of LinkedIn effectively across the globe. We've been able to, train people from 30 different countries, Jagdish, and about 30,000 people have directly taken training from Leverage LinkedIn Global Initiative. This is it. I just wanted to share with you. Hope I've been able to address that shyness issue and the leveraging LinkedIn initiative you wanted to ask. Back to you.
No, no, absolutely. I think that's really noble, and in these uncertain times when everyone is anxious, I think it helps a lot that I've seen the power of LinkedIn in so many ways. I mean, there was these big campaigns, crowdfunding campaigns that are finding success, using LinkedIn, because
Yeah,
everything that you reach out through LinkedIn can actually contribute, right? And
yeah,
then,
yeah.
people really bringing out their talents there. I myself, experimented with LinkedIn successfully, so I think it's a noble cause. Thanks, Divya, for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jagdish, for giving me this opportunity to be on your show today, hosting you, learning from your story, your anecdotes. And I would love to invite you to my Value Addition Global show as well as a guest sometime in future. Thank you so much, Jagdish. It was great
Absolutely,
experience.
Divya. It will be a great pleasure. I just want to add that I can see a lot more questions here. So since I'm on the other side, uh, friends, I just want to tell you that I'll be looking at, and any important questions I will definitely try to answer over the next couple of days.
Yeah, sure. Rest
Okay.
assured, because of positivity of time, maybe Jagdish is not able to answer all the questions. Back to you, Jagdish. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Divya, and thank you everyone for joining and for engaging. I would say great questions, great comments, and thanks once again. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Jagdish.
Have
Take
a
care.
great
Bye-bye.
weekend. Bye bye.
Yeah.